isn't being fed into the purchasing decision very much, if at all, and I don't think very many law professors, if any, pick casebooks based on their price, at least not yet. Also, interestingly, professors are not only the primary consumers of these books as those who select them without paying the price for them at retail, but they're also the people who write them. They're the primary authors who assemble the material, create the cement that goes around the stones in the cases in a traditional casebook. So this market's a pretty odd thing. We all know it's not sustainable for books to be sold at $150 a pop at retail, which is where they are. The reason you know that it's not sustainable is even the large publishers are starting to behave as if they know it's not sustainable. So they're doing interesting things like Aspen's custom publishing, Thomson's loose leaf casebook program, which they're expanding, West's Law School Exchange. So when even the oligopolists are starting to act hinky, everyone knows there's a huge problem, right? So on with our three presentations. We'll hear first from Christian.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. So I think all of these projects are aimed at the problems that Joe identifies. And so I'm going to do a live demo of HydraText. Hopefully the technology gods will be with me throughout the demo. But I want to start by highlighting what I think is the key innovative opportunity for shared online collaborative materials and what's changed. And then I think all of these other things are kind of implementation details, and there can be good implementations and bad implementations. And my goal in this project, HydraText, is to make a good implementation so that when this form of producing textbooks becomes ubiquitous, and I think that it certainly will, whatever people use, and ultimately I don't care what they use, it's at least as good as what I've already done. That's the goal here, right? So this is the way people used to make textbooks. Right? It's one person toiling to produce one definitive work. Okay? I say one, but oftentimes it's 4 or 5 because it's one professor and 3 or 4 research assistants. But basically, it's one unit, one individual or one group producing one definitive version of something. And this is the way publishing written works has been for a very long time, since the dawn of written works, maybe until the internet. Okay, so then there's an innovation. Okay, so with the internet now, we allow lots of people to get online, and they can produce one definitive version of something. This is Wikipedia, right? Wikipedia allows lots of different people to get together and work on this one master work. Wikipedia represents this kind of technology. The web makes this possible. It's great. I use it all the time. The idea behind HydraText, though, is a little bit different. We get a crowd. They work together, and somehow they produce many different versions of the same sort of thing. Right? They work together. They share the same sorts of content, but they want to produce personalized versions or maybe really radically distinct versions. Okay, so this is the goal. The goal is to allow this to happen. And all of the software details are really just implementation details after that. I mean, good implementations of this and bad implementations of this. And so here's my idea for how to implement this sharing in this way. First, you have your content. Okay, and all kinds of different content that people want to expose their students to, because I'm focused on textbooks. But textbooks is just an example of this kind of technology, right? And I think of these like songs in iTunes. You go to the iTunes store, you have your own CDs, maybe you have videos, you have all kinds of content here, right? And what you want to do with this content in order to present it to the students and to produce something a little bit more like a traditional textbook is get it into a system that has basically a hierarchical table of contents. Okay, so basically we want to take all of these songs and put them into a playlist. Right, a book is essentially a hierarchically arranged playlist of content. Okay, and these newer books contain video and audio and everything else, or even stretch the definition of what a book is to something more like a real playlist in iTunes. Right, if you can put PDFs in iTunes, that's essentially what we're trying to do here with this book. Now the goal then is to get all of this stuff into a system easily, allow the creation and maybe sharing of these kinds of hierarchical tables of contents, and then allow people to put this content into the table of contents, right? So if you think of what a book is, it's a table of contents, and within each heading, or under each heading, there are a number of units of content. All right, so that's the central idea. And the system is trying to make this very easy by allowing it easy to put stuff in, easy to make these tables of contents, and easy to put the stuff into the table of contents. And then on the output side, right, the goal is to create beautiful books. Books that look as good as books that students would buy, but are also much more flexible. Okay, so we want to target print, we want to target the web, and we want to target the ebook. Okay, that's the end of the setup, and now I just want to demo some of the stuff I've been doing in HydraText. And a little bit of an awkward angle, so I'll be bent over and trying to talk at the same time.
You want to share it?
Actually, is there a chair there? Thanks. Okay, so when you log into HydraText, this is what you see. Can you see okay from the back? I increased the font size a little bit. Hopefully it will be somewhat easy to follow. And there's one site, HydraText, right now. You can imagine different ones for radically different fields, but this is the basically the law school version of HydraText. And over here, this pop-up window allows me to select from the different subjects. My view is that in each subject, people will want to share content, but when I'm making a textbook in torts, I don't want to be distracted with content from, race in the law. Although there will be some overlap, and we want to allow people to move content between fields. In general, that's not the content I want to be looking at. So I can move from, say, property to land use, and the heading changes to reflect that I've switched to a different subject. Okay, so within each subject, and on the sidebar here, we see some of the standard sorts of things. I have my own materials, and the materials I have are finished textbooks. These are tables of contents with content in them. They're articles, and articles is is the word that I use because I need a word that is the same as basically songs in iTunes, right? It's one case, one section of questions, one snippet of an academic article, or something like that. Media can be rich media, images, movies, audio. Bookmarks are references to things that I found on the site that I want to keep track of. Okay, so these are my materials. If I click on textbooks, I see the textbooks I've made in land use. If I click on articles, I see my own articles here. And the same with media. I don't know if I have any media in this subject. Bookmarks is the same. The Hydra is the term that I use for the comments. Okay, so this is every textbook in this subject area. So this is every textbook in land use, and I think there's one other person who's created one in land use. Every article in land use. So we have pages and pages of articles that are land use cases and other things. All the media, and there's no media in land use. And then this thing called topics. And topics are all just things that I think could be headings in a textbook. Okay, so the idea is that when I build a textbook, I'm going to select these topics and arrange them in a certain order, and then I'm going to add my content to it. So let me go ahead and do that. So if I make a new textbook, I just click on textbooks, I click new textbook, and I'm looking at this page here. It says it's already created it for me. I have a textbook now. I could actually print it out. It wouldn't be very interesting though. But let me just put maybe CALI sample book. So I'm going to go ahead and change the name to CALI sample book. And now I need to add headings to build my table of contents. So I just go down here and I select them. Okay, so maybe I want something on takings to start off with, and maybe a little on takings theory, maybe a little bit on ad hoc takings. So I can just select them from the menu like this, and now I'm making a book right now. I don't know, maybe something on comprehensive planning. Okay, so now I start to have something that looks like a book, and I can use these arrows to kind of make it hierarchical. So now theory is a heading within takings, it's a subheading of takings. But I can also just come over here and drag and drop. So I can move, because I didn't register. So now ad hoc takings is a subheading of takings, and I can move them within, so I can move this down here. So you can drag and drop and build your table of contents. Now, when I want to add my articles, all I do is I come down here to contents, I click this little button, this thing drops down, and now it's the interface that allows me to add content to my table of contents. And it presents me with three things. One, it doesn't present me with everything in land use, because that would be too long a list, and I don't think people would want to use that. But any article I've made is available here for me to put in. Any article I've bookmarked is available for me to put in. And any article which has been tagged with this topic, theory. And I don't know if I have any. Yeah, I have a few. I have economic analysis of takings and zoning and land use regulations. So I can click on one of those and suddenly it's in the book. Okay? Oh, by the way, maybe I don't like the name theory, so I'm going to change it to, I don't know, takings theory. Okay? You'll notice that in parentheses here, I still have theory. That tells me the topic from which this came. That doesn't change. But in the presentation of the book, this subheading will be called takings theory. Okay, so I've got one article in there. Maybe I'll add something else to ad hoc takings. I'll add this is the Miller case. That's a good one. Oh, I don't know, maybe Pennsylvania coal. Okay, and I can move these around if I want to quite easily. Because now I at least have a little bit in this book. So why not just go ahead and download it? I hit download, and then I click build the textbook. And now it's actually putting it all together, and it's making all three kinds of output. It's making HTML, it's making a PDF, and it's making an EPUB, which I can look at in my iPad. Let's just take a look at what the PDF looks like. Okay, so this is the sample book. Let me open it in preview, because I usually get a little nicer view in preview. So here's what the sample book looks like. It's 2 pages, so you print front and back, and you hole punch it. It looks like a real textbook. These red boxes are here only when it's on the screen, because I can click on one and it takes me to those pages. When you print it, those red boxes don't appear. So let's go to Takings Theory, and we see I have really a beautiful looking textbook, complete with, I don't know, I guess I didn't put footnotes in this one because I didn't choose those, but footnotes look like real footnotes. It's really super, super easy to do. Okay. But maybe I don't want to start from scratch. Maybe I want to use someone else's book, and I want to rearrange things. And so here's a book that I used when I taught in Germany just a few weeks ago to teach takings law to German students. Constitutional limits on the regulation of property. I'll just copy this textbook. It doesn't matter if it's mine or someone else's. Okay, so I've copied it, and now it's given it a new name, which is the same, and then it's appended with the creation date just to give it a unique name. And I'm going to put CALI takings book. Okay, and maybe the reason I did this is because I actually want to put per se takings ahead of ad hoc takings, and now I can download the book. I've got a brand new textbook. This will take a little bit longer to render because, again, it has to it uses LaTeX to make a PDF, and it has to build the HTML. By the way, the HTML I can download as a zipped folder. I can give it to the librarian to put up on the website. I hit preview, and this is what the students would see when they log into the page. They can quickly just read whatever they want on their iPhone or on their Android device, just like browsing the web. All of the cases here, because of the way they came in, are linked to Google Scholar cases. So any case they want to read more about is right there. Footnotes, you just click on, and boom, you see the footnote. You can click back into the article. It's all really, really, really easy. So, a new case came out. Let's see, where am I? And so maybe I want to add one thing. So the Supreme Court just came out with this Stop the Beach Nourishment case. Maybe I want to add that. And so how do I do it? Well, I want to add a new article. So I go over here to Articles, and I'm going to upload a new article because I don't want to fool with anything. This isn't even on Google yet. All I have is a PDF. I want to include that PDF into my book, so I'll just say Stop Beach. I don't even know if this is the name of it. Author is, I think it's maybe I call it the U.S. Supreme Court. There we go. And it's going to be a PDF, and I'm going to choose the file. I can add all kinds of other information. Let me go to desktop, and here it is. Choose, and there, I'm going to add it. It uploads it, makes it available, and I'm going to go ahead and tag it. Now, the software doesn't transform a PDF into an HTML file. That software never works, okay? But at least it will appear here as a link for the students. I'm going to edit the info, and I'm going to tag it with, I'll just tag it with, I guess, takings. Maybe I'll leave it with theory just so I can see it. So I'm just adding tags here so that people can easily find this now. So let me go back to my textbook, which was the CALI takings book, and now I'm at it. Let's add it to, I add it to per se takings. I didn't tag it with per se takings, did I? What did I tag it with? Ad hoc takings? Just takings? Great, okay. I'll put it here. There's Stop the Beach Renourishment. Okay, so now it's on there. I'll download, build the textbook. And you'll see what it does is it takes this PDF and it just puts it right in line with everything else. So let's just take a look at the PDF, which is a little bit bigger now. So in the very first chapter now we have what came from the Supreme Court right in line with the book. Super easy to add new stuff. But it's even cooler because let's see, I can upload a new article, all kinds of formats. I can type in a new article myself, which is as easy as typing. It does all kinds of fancy formatting for you. But I can also put a new article from Google. So I'm going to put a new article from Google, and I don't know, let's suppose I didn't have Lucas in there. Let's put Lucas versus South Carolina, CALI demo. And I can either get the URL from Google Scholar, or I could just do this, Lucas Coastal. That ought to be enough. And I'll hit create process. It's going to go out to Google. It's going to grab the case. It's going to filter it and pull and bring it and make it really nice. Change the footnotes into the kinds of footnotes which look good here. Hopefully it's working well. Here's the case. And you see it goes through, it automatically finds these kinds of lines, deliver the opinion of the court, it bolds them, it puts some space in there, it changes the footnotes, and it changes the links. So if we click on Muggler, we go to Google now. If we want to look at the PDF version of this, here it is. And this is what it'll look like in the student's casebook. So I don't think I have a lot of time to demo much else, but I will pass around my iPad, which has on it the text. I've used this now for 2 years in my own classes. And here's my book for my class, which again you get for free when you build it, and if you want to pass it around, people can just browse the book by clicking on the table of contents. I think I'm out of time.
Take your time. Go ahead.
No, I think this is well. I guess I can show one more. I guess I can show one more thing.
I want to see more.
Let's see. I wonder if it's up there. It's a Lucas oral argument. Let's see. Is that up there? It's Bush versus Lucas. Yeah. Okay. So. OEA now allows me to download MP3 oral arguments. I'm just going to copy this link. I'm going to go back to HydraText, and maybe, it's kind of cool that I've got this case, but what I really like is for when my students are on the web, that they can actually have the oral argument embedded into the textbook. And because PDF and HTML are different, I allow you to adjust those separately. So if I adjust the web content, come over here, and all I have to do now is, there's an easier way to add media, but I just want to show you what's possible. With a little bit of HTML5. It's a long case, it takes a while to process, but there's cut everything else after that. Okay, so you can just see if it's really doing that, or if it's oh, I know what happened. Okay, so with HTML5, it's a little bit strict, and you have to close your tags. Okay, so this is the case, but if the students, again, this is in the textbook, right in there.
We'll hear argument next to number 91453.
So the textbook now has audio right in it, and
is that grabbing it from the OYE website? Or
it's grabbing it from OYE, but I could also upload it to the site and have it embedded into the thing, so it wouldn't rely on OYE. So I have either option. There, I just dropped in a link to OYE. In the same way that if I go to YouTube and I don't know. The reason it has all these flash things is because I have a flash blocker on my browser. Let me just see, I guess any of these. Maybe I'll click this one, and I can go down here to embed. I can grab this, I can go back to my case. I can, again, adjust the web output, and maybe somewhere down in here, drop this. I just copied and pasted straight from YouTube. And so if you're teaching, as I do in property, we'll teach the loving case. There's some great videos about loving. And let's see. The embed doesn't always want to cooperate. I don't know if it is right now, if it's still loading. I've grabbed one of the YouTube. So YouTube embeds don't always work as they should. But if you can embed it in any web page, then it will appear in. Let's try this one. I don't know if it will work or not. Let's see. There it is. Yeah, it is. I just have to be patient. So now this YouTube video is directly in the student's textbook. Okay, so when they navigate to the site, again, on their iPhone, on their iPad, on their Android device, on their computer, wherever they're reading it, they'll have access to this. And most YouTube is being converted to HTML5, so Flash isn't a problem. But that's,
this is in the one that was rendered as HTML?
As HTML. So that's because you can't really embed it in the PDF.
Okay.
Now, as far as the ebook, the one that's being passed around, the EPUB standard is a little bit behind the HTML5 standard. Okay, so but my understanding is that the iPad will render video and audio in those ebooks if they're done correctly in HTML5, at least some of the time. But that's going to be coming along. So we'll get to the point where even if the PDF version doesn't support it, the e-reader version will be able to support video and audio when those vendors bring it online. Okay, so that's HydraText in a whirlwind, and I don't want to take up any more time, but thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I guess we're going to do it afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. My iPad is still in the room, right? Yeah, okay.
Get hold of me.
Not a PC user, so I'm a little slow when I'm dealing with PC equipment. I want to talk about my experience as a co-author of a book and as a co-owner of the publishing company that publishes the book. It's web-based casebook publishing. We're called Semaphore Press. In a sense, what we're doing is extremely traditional, and I want to talk for just a moment about the very traditional aspect of what it is we do. What we're doing is creating PDFs of casebooks that look like casebooks, much like the PDF rendered version of what Christian was talking about. The familiar table of contents hierarchically organized, and the content is very traditional. Now here, because it's PDF only, that's the only version we provide, it only has the text. The casebook that we started the company with, that we wrote, is this IP survey casebook. Those are the classes we teach, IP-related classes. Here's the beginning of the introduction chapter. It is what casebooks look like. It's very familiar in that sense. So this is not at all what's new and interesting about what we're doing. What's new and interesting about what we're doing is the fact that the publishing is done on the web, and only on the web. The only thing we provide to people is the PDF electronic file without any DRM. It doesn't evaporate or expire. It can be copied to as many devices as you want. What we ask is, if someone else is interested in getting the book, please send them to our website. Don't simply give them the PDF that you have. So that the person who wants the book can experience the choice we ask people to engage in. The choice we ask people to engage in, a very basic model that we've been using since the fall of 2008, not just us, but adopters at other schools, and it's being used by a number of other folks now, is this. The suggested price for the book, and it's a 900-page casebook for an IP survey class, the suggested price for the book is $30. Why did Miller say suggested? Because you get to download the book, and you get to choose the price. That includes $0. If you don't want to pay for it, you don't have to. You still get the book. Why on earth would we pick 30? It's about $1 a class. So it's sort of an iTunes benchmark, right? $1 a song, $1 a class. Why do we let them choose their own price, including a price as low as $0? 2 reasons. We're educators first, we're not publishers first. Our rule is the student always gets the book, period. right? So if that means they can't pay for it that semester, they can't. If it means they decide they don't want to pay for it that semester, that's okay too. They get the book. We were inspired in this project by the fact that we were hearing about things like students using a reserved copy on the library, using an old edition because they couldn't afford the new edition, borrowing a book from a friend, they're sharing a book, they're both annotating it, they're getting confused by each other. All a bunch of stuff that is very publisher first, not very educator first. Not interesting to me, or my co-author and co-owner. So I'm going to want to walk you through, the second reason why we like allowing students to choose their price, including a price as low as zero. Because we're IP professors, it's an object lesson in incentive effects. We explain very clearly on this website, which we encourage them to read, that if everyone chooses the price zero, this company will fail pretty quickly. And so the book won't be available anymore. So they're learning about free riding, they're learning about incentives. That's a good thing for lawyers to know generally, and certainly for IP lawyers to know, although we're planning on publishing books in fields other than IP. We've already got another author under contract. We're moving forward with conversations with some other folks. So how does the ordering model look? When you select the Our Books tab and you get to Our Book, this is the first screen you encounter, and it gives you the option of downloading the book. If you scroll down on this page, if we were actually on the web right now, we could scroll down the page, see the entire table of contents. The download button under the title, download all or part of the book. You can download chapters. In fact, you can even download individual parts, which correspond roughly to one class session. What do you get when you want to download it? You get this page, this payment page. I've blown it up a little bit. And on the payment page, I want to point out two things and highlight them to you. Again, you get to choose your price. We suggest $30. And I want to share data with you about what people actually pay. We suggest $30, but you get to choose. And you can choose zero. When you choose zero, when you decide not to pay, we want you to be honest about what you're doing within the framework of this model. And within the framework of this model, what you're doing is free riding, which is why you get to click the free ride button. Let me read it to you. Free ride. I won't pay now, but want to download anyway. Indeed, feel free. You're welcome to, if that's what you want to do. Now, does this mean I'm not a huge believer in commons-oriented projects, in models that don't involve any form of payment? I'm a huge believer in them. I love them. I think they're terrific. That's not what we're doing. We're creating a publishing platform that works for professors who want to write traditional books, who do want the opportunity to be paid, but who aren't interested in DRM, books that disappear, and a bunch of other student hostile nonsense, because that's not what we're providing. Here's the download page. So once you pay or not, you get to download the book. We have a statutory supplement as well, which is also included. And again, you can scroll down the page, download individual parts. What happened? Well, for some of the sections that were taught, we administered a survey at the end of the course, along with the course evaluation process, that allowed us to collect information about how students rated the book compared to other books. The first question asks them to rate ease of access or purchase and ease of use compared to books they've used so far. Worse than those, better than those. We asked them what price they thought was fair. We also asked them what price they paid. And then finally, we asked them why they made the payment choice that they made. You know, because they thought it was a fair price, because they like free writing. We gave them some options. What did they report? Well, focusing on the first two questions we asked, ease of access and ease of use, compared to books you've been using thus far, and these are second and third year students, they're not first year students, right? 95 out of 126 rated it +2 better than books they've been using so far. So the student reaction to this is not, as is the law student reaction to many things, oh my God, this isn't like what I was expecting, you're evil. Okay? That's the way they react to lots of things. Not to this. They say, hey, This is better than the books I've been using so far in terms of ease of purchasing. Similarly, for ease of use, 61 of the 126 rated it as +2 easier than books they've been using so far, 33 as +1, not +2, and then 15 as the same. Okay, so that's the vast bulk of them rating it as easier to use, or at least as easy to use. They also like the content of the book, right? It would be weird if, in order to provide them content in a way we think is better, it wound up harming their perception of the content itself. It didn't. They liked the book. In fact, they liked it better than the average of books they've been using so far. This isn't social scientific experimentation with random assignment and yada, yada, yada. This is descriptive stuff, okay? We're not trying to make inferences. We're not doing t-tests. Just giving you some information about student survey responses. What's the correspondence between what they thought was a fair price and the price they report paying? Now, this is self-report, which means they could remember incorrectly, they could lie, they could have a daydream while they're marking paper, right? So it's just self-report with all those limitations. The most interesting number, the largest number in the table, the 84 students who thought $30 was a fair price and who report paying exactly that. I've got independent payment data, the credit card payments we actually received, which is what I'll end with, right? But this is what they report. The two next numbers that I think are interesting, the 15 students who thought $30 was fair and paid nothing. That's fine, right? We gave them that option. The 10 students who thought more than $30 would have been fair but paid $30 because that was the suggested price. That's interesting too. Right? There was a person who thought more than 30 was fair and actually paid more than 30. They paid 50. But the bulk of students do what? They, I would suggest, anger on the suggested price. Yeah, that seems okay. Yeah, that's what I'm going to pay. And now I'm moving on to actually get the book. 84 of the 126 students report doing that. When we asked why they made the pricing decision they made, and they could choose more than one of these, 83 said, yeah, it seemed about right. That's what I wanted to pay. That's what I paid. Okay? I thought it was fun, that I'm glad we asked. 2 said, I was curious to see if I could really get the book at a price I chose. You know, are you guys punking me or what? Can I really get this for 0? Let me find out. I love that 2 of them did that, or said they did that. Right? 5, and I feel bad about this, 5 students didn't realize they had a choice. To me, those are 5 things I wish had gone differently. Because knowing you've got a choice is a predicate for exercising it. I wish they had known, but at least it's not higher than 5. And then there are the fun free riders. Hey, I like it. 3 of them said that. I guess they would have preferred it if we insisted that they pay. They would have enjoyed it more. And all free riding is okay with me when I can do so legally. There are 10 who manage to get a thrill when it's okay. They're not transgressive types. Cool. What did they actually do? First, I want to collapse. Now, here we have a lot more data than the surveys, because here we know for all the adopters we've had, which covers 321 students since fall of 2008. And among those 321 students, 67.9% paid $30 when given the option to pay nothing at all. Wow. Okay. And these are actual credit card payments received. Okay. Now that 67%, those 218 students, is actually 88% of all those who paid some positive dollar value. But if you look at everyone who paid more than nothing, 88% of them pay the 30 you suggest, which indicates to me it's sort of a binary, it's an on-off switch, not a continuum in the mind of the student. I'm going to pay or not. Once I decide, I'm going to pay the $30. Okay. Some did pay less. 28 paid less than 30, but 218 paid 30. So it's a a pretty big batch of folks. Okay? And again, that one student, God love him or her, paid 50 because they thought it was worth more than 30. That's that person. Okay? But you're saying to yourself, wait a minute. Warren and Miller wrote the book. They teach the classes. Students may think anything from, they really know whether we paid, even though we walled ourselves off from that information during the semester. I like them because I heard good things about them. Personally, I wouldn't normally pay for a book like this, but I will for them. Okay. Or I'm rather amazed, they're doing some experiment, it's spooking me out, I just need to pay. Okay? Something like that. That's an artifact of our being both the authors and the teachers. Okay? So you break this out. Classes we taught, classes other people than us taught at other schools. Right? Those other schools, Fordham, Loyola, Chicago, and McGeorge. It was used at Notre Dame, but interestingly, the Notre Dame experiment went somewhat awry. The students weren't pointed to the right web page. It bypassed the payment opportunity. They were told later, hey, you could go back and pay for this. None of them did. So in that, you get that initial moment of choice, and then it's done. That's important to know, I think. But Fordham, Loyola, Chicago, right? 150 students, 60% pay $30. It's not 67.9, which is the overall average, nor is it 74.9. So there is an author effect, it would seem, within this data set, right? 75% paid 30 when we were the ones teaching a class. But hey, 60 isn't bad, right? Almost 2/3, given the choice to pay or not pay at all, and most, although not all of them, realized they had a choice. Paid 30. Interesting, I think, right? And of course, there's the 30% who decided not to pay. I think that's my last slide. In case you're interested in the way we're conceptualizing this, our author agreement is the author gets 50% of the royalty income. The company, us, the publisher, gets the other half, because we're trying to build this into something robust. I hope it works. I think it's a fun model. It's only one possibility. There are many, and John's going to tell us about another.
Well, I'm, of course, updated my PowerPoint while we were talking. Hopefully I can get the cabinet open. Yes, good. So while I'm plugging this in, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
So what's the model to this? What's the license to the student? If they can give the book away to anybody else?
Yeah, we just ask them, please don't.
Oh. But you are teaching intellectual property course, so.
The license is, please don't do that.
Oh, okay.
Send them to the webpage.
All right.
And they will or they won't.
But they don't have, like, you're not supposed to be doing a Creative Commons license with them or anything?
No, it's not Creative Commons at all.
Oh.
Because if another commercial publisher bodily appropriated the entirety of the book, our response to that behavior would be different from our response to the behavior of a student who said, well, I'd rather just copy the PDF for my friends rather than having them have the opportunity to make a choice. We could probably pick a Creative Commons license that would get close to that if we're not using one.
All right. Sorry. Give me a moment to find which file, because I've stored so many files.
Other than for your slides, which are already there.
Yeah. Good. Well, I changed my PowerPoint, of course, the last time. Actually, I wanted to go to a website if I could find one too. Is there a way to get to a website in this guy? I think.
Yeah, there's Firefox.
Yes, of course. All right, so we can leave that up while I do this. So I'm going to start with, first of all, my name is John Mayer, the Executive Director of CALI, the Center for Computer Assisted Legal Instruction. In the last few months, I've started to see a proliferation of articles. Now, there's always been articles like this declaring the death of the book or the death of print or something like this. But they're starting to get a little more, in the future or soon, Now they're saying within 5 years. And so this was one that says in 5 years, all digital textbooks, 18% of digital textbooks will be, 18% of all textbooks will be digital in their sales. This is actually a very modest sort of prediction. This one's a little bit better. Stop the presses, sunset for print in 5 years. Financial Times. It's all going away. It's all going to be digital. I don't know. I've been hearing this for, actually, I know for sure how long I've been hearing it. 15 years. I looked at an agenda item from a 1995 CALI conference where the death of the book was predicted in 5 years, and so I've seen it. Now, I was going to start with like a really quick joke. I'm sorry, I'm a comedian. I'll go through the joke, but it's even funnier than I thought. One of the biggest problems with books, and I read this in an article just recently, is that they don't smell right. They don't smell like the books. There's a fetish around books. So CALI's got a new project. We're going to get old books, and we're going to run them through a chipper, and then we're going to boil down that essence and sell a new product. Oh, the book. And I thought, I'm so clever and all that, except for the fact that somebody's already been there. And it's actually got a website called Smell of Book.
Careful with that URL.
Did I get that right?
You don't have a www.
Probably don't.
You've got a C after the HTTP
Oh, couldn't say. I can't see this thing.
instead of a colon.
No, it's
Oh, is that the colon? It's my eyes.
Does it smell of book or smell of books?
So,
Yeah, I think so.
one of the things they say about comedies, it's all the timing. There. So there's actually, I don't know if this is a real product, but there's at least a website that's stuff that you can spray in your books, and it's actually worse than that. You can get the classic musty stuff, crunchy bacon, you have cats, new book or something. So sometimes you think you're so funny. Shut up, right? So, really quickly, this is what books are, right? They're iPads and they're G-pads. I think what's fascinating about the iPad is not the actual device itself, or that it's from Apple. It's that they, with one device, invented a new category of device. And I think it works in the sense that we are going to like the idea of being able to carry around lightweight web browsing and e-reading devices. So it does better than the Kindle. It does better than a notebook. It doesn't replace the notebook computer. It doesn't replace your iPhone because it's the larger form factor. The other thing that our books are things like your smartphones. What I would call sort of opportunistic reading, where as long as I've got my phone in my pocket, and I always do, I got 3 minutes, I can literally just click, boom, and just start reading with one thumb. So with the iPad, it's one hand. With the iPhone, it's one thumb. Actually, this is an Android, and something like that. And you might think, well, students don't read textbooks on their iPhones. Oh, yes, they do. They figure out every niche of time that they've got to consume that information. All right. The other one, of course, is you still need the PC because you need to be able to take long-form notes, and you need to be able to do mouse-based cut and paste or highlighting, which you still can't do. You definitely can't do very well on an iPhone, and it's actually kind of clumsy to do with a fat finger. My fat fingers, stuff like that. You might be able to blow it up and do things, but there's something about the precision of the mouse and something about the faster typing on the keyboard, certainly for taking notes and doing things like that. And this is also a book, because it'd be great if I could take a book and dump it to an MP3 using either text-to-speech software, which is now inexpensive or easy to do. It's built into every Kindle, except only when they turn it on or turn it off, right, because of the DRM. Because I would like to not just read my book, but if I've got a long drive or if I'm at the gym, have it read to me, because maybe I'm not a what's the word? Maybe I'm not a visual learner. Maybe I'm an oral learner, or something like that, right? Different methods. All right. This is also a book, which is to say a blog is a book. Because maybe I don't want to just dump it to a device or have it on a web page. Well, actually, I want to have it on a web page, but it says a blog. But a blog has the ability to sort of allow for interactions. And I don't want to just think blogs here. I want to think social media site to cover all possibilities. So your book is on Ning, or your book is on some, maybe even Twen or Blackboard or something. And the social media aspects are, I want to take notes. I want to be able to share those notes with other students. I want teachers to see my notes. I want some formative assessment possibilities to pop out of that. So everybody, it's Friday, no, it's Saturday. Today's Friday. So on Monday, I want you to read next chapter. I want you to write 500 words on what you got out of it. And then, I press a button on my specialty software that says, and I've started the process by which everybody will read somebody else's stuff and write a comment on somebody else's thing. So you can do round-robin assessments or something like that. Harvard was working on a project like that called Rotisserie. It involved lots of email and things like that. Well, those ideas are powerful in a formative assessment sort of a way, right? This is an example of a plugin for WordPress called CommentPress. The idea behind it is, pardon me, the idea is the book is on the left and the comments are on the right, and they're tied into either specific pages or specific paragraphs. Right? If you can talk web blog API, which is an open protocol, and you've got WordPress, which we're running on Classcaster right now, then maybe you can start launching books inside of that have all sorts of different comment mechanisms built around it. All right? I'm kind of waving my hands about these ideas, but there are some examples in the world. All right. So what's CALI doing about this with 12 minutes left? Well, the problem, first of all, I love HydraText. I really do, and we got to talk some more. And I love the idea of Semaphore Press and the idea of asking people to pay for it. One of our really early ideas was we were going to print the student's name when we generated the book, so that they wouldn't make copies for other people and do what I would call, we were going to call that social DRM. So it's not actually digitally rights managed. It just encourages the student to come and make some sort of donation. I'm amazed that you get more than 50% donations outside of your authors, outside of your own classes. Because in your own classes, there's got to be an author club. So you would imagine that. But I get the idea that students get that there's value here, and they want to encourage that sort of value. So the idea behind eLangdell is basically CALI wants to pay people to write books that we will then give away through a Creative Commons license. So no royalty stream. Instead, it's an all upfront sort of thing. And the number and the way we struggle with a lot of the same issues you were, a vocabulary for how to talk about certain aspects of digital books. So and I'm starting to think this is a mistake, by the way. We said that we would basically pay $500 for people to write a chapter. And a chapter is precisely defined as the amount of reading that a student does to prepare for 1 hour of class. And I've already gotten people calling me saying, well, I teach 90 minutes. What about that? Or I teach 40 minutes. And it's like, it's a guideline. We'll negotiate those deals or something like that. And the other thing I got was, well, I don't want to write a chapter, I want to write a book. It's like, well, great, We'll pay you one chapter at a time, because I know how sometimes people get involved in projects and then, start and then stop delivering or something like that. But the reason for being willing to buy chapters was we thought this was actually sort of an open source Linux idea. The genius of Linus Torvalds was not that he wrote an operating system, but was that he organized the system so that it was possible for people to make small contributions that were still valuable. All right? Committing to write an entire casebook is, well, depending on who you are, a 6-month to 2 or 3 year project. And if we said we'll buy casebooks, well, then we would start the clock, and 2 years from later we'll get back to you and tell you how it worked out. The other thing was I had a feeling that law professors maybe didn't want to write entire casebooks, but they just hated that chapter on rule against perpetuities in Duke Menier, or they just hated your chapter on takings or something like that, And it would be a perfect book if I could just rewrite that one chapter. Well, great. What if everybody wrote the chapter of their dreams, and you could then reassemble them, like you say, into one casebook or something like that. We wanted to at least explore those ideas, all right? We expected that to become something, though, where we might offer $20,000 to people to write a book, which I hope is an enormous or a higher amount of money than you can ever get from a royalty stream, except for the most popular casebooks of all time. Right? When I talk to authors who are willing to at least admit to me how much they make, that number is quite high. And by the way, I don't believe law faculty write casebooks for money at all. It's not about the money. But the reason why we're offering money is so that part of the conversation is off the table. You know, because if you say, would you do something for free to a lot of faculty, they say, sure, I'll get back to you. And then you never hear from them. If you say, well, $20,000, they say, well, great, I'll sign a contract. And then we will be allowed to bother them, or to give them advice, or to work with them. We essentially, enter into a collaboration. So the money helps us to get that thing going. Let me back up a little bit. So we sent this postcard out to 10,000 law faculty a month ago, using the ALS list. All right, and we have posted ads. That's an actual size of the ad on some blogs, mostly law professor blogs that are aimed at law professors. Bolick, Prof's blog, Brian Leiter, Brian, Richard. I always get those two mixed up. Right? Yeah, there's Brian. Yeah, and things like that. And so far we've gotten. Oops, sorry, getting ahead of myself. And so far we've gotten about 30 what I would call serious responses. Now, of those 30, about 15 of them are problematic for us. They're adjuncts, so they're not tenured, or they're not even full-time faculty, or they're in non-substantive courses, meaning non-bar review courses, legal research, legal writing, clinic courses, or things like that. Love that. Fully respect that. But for CALI, I have to figure out, or I should say, me and the board have to figure out where we want to put our extremely limited funds first. Do we really do we want to support another legal writing book, or do we want to get a torts book? Or do we want to do a torts book or a dog blog book? And I'll explain that in a second. This is all about freedom, innovation, and education. Which one of you said it? You probably both said it. You've got to give the freedom back to the faculty. I totally understand where the vendors are coming from in DRMing their stuff. They've got to protect their income stream. That's fine. But when the income stream smacks up against the ability to innovate in education, then that's where we got to part ways. That's all there is to it. Education's got to be the primary reason for this. And I'm imagining that we're not going to get individuals to write books, but we're going to get pods or groups or ALS sections. At one time I thought I might be able to attract them by section to do things. And that's why, the big ones, torts and labor law, fine, but dog law is sort of all the areas where people said, gee, there should be a casebook, that sort of plucks from a lot of different places. And then put these three things up and basically say, we are going into a period of great chaos and change in legal education. Carnegie's saying, you've got to change the curriculum. The international scene basically says we should be teaching things. One of the things I was talking to a faculty member who's been teaching a lot of some lawyers from China, teaching straight torts, American torts. They're learning American law to get an American JD. But it turns out that teaching Chinese natives is a lot different than teaching law students from the US. And she's like, boy, I wish I had a different casebook. And she tried to describe to me how that would be different. Not less information, but just presented in maybe slightly different ways, maybe a different selection of cases, maybe even something pulled from EU cases or something. And I'm like, well, that's exactly the type of situation. What else? We've got the American Bar Association saying we must be measuring outcomes. Well, the casebook should also be a digital device that can do assessment. So not just links to video and to audio, OEA and stuff like that, but maybe also to multiple choice questions, either formative assessment, they do them themselves, think a CALI lesson, and get feedback, and maybe even a pool of material. If you author a book, you can author the test questions at the end as well.
Speaking of questions, are we done at 11:30? Because I want to give people in the audience time
yes, we are,
to ask
and
questions.
I'm done.
Okay.
I said that's my last slide, that this is how we normally view our students, right?
So questions from you guys, to any one of us.
I had a question for you, actually, Jen, and that is, I found your data results really interesting, the surveys, and I was curious how much you thought, how much of a variable was that they liked your book much more than other books they've used, because the content, at least to me it would seem, the content in my mind, knowing that the professor created the content, I guess Christian could answer this too, but created the content, covers presumably all of the content in the book rather than buying a book that's 900 pages and covering 500 pages. If that's a variable, I mean, I would think that had to be a variable in it, but I don't know. I was curious what you
Those 126 respondents include professors other than Lydia and me.
Yeah, that's true.
And I did not, in looking at that disaggregation, although one can't do the sorts of statistical inference tests because it's not a valid sample for that, I did not see any difference.
Okay.
Okay, 2 questions. Any idea on how many students downloaded the PDF and printed it?
I don't have a good idea for that. I have a good idea for the following. They only printed small chunks at a time, so it had that flexibility with which any of these methods would, right? They don't have to lug around a big book.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that I'm fairly confident of is that they print a lot less of it than any one of us would print. In other words, they're more comfortable paperlessly than we are, with annotation tools and other things. And because I work at one of the nation's leading environmental law schools, there's also a great consciousness among the students about avoiding printing, if possible. So I think they printed it less than certainly than I would.
I have something quick to add to that. With mine, I allow them to use the book for exams. And because of the exam software, they have to, a lot of them have to have it printed. So I think most printed, it may have been for that reason, but I think most really wanted it printed. And so actually I had a sign-up page on our Google Groups page that said, if you want the book printed, sign up here. And then I went to Kinko's and I got it for $13 per student, right? And they delivered it to the law school. So most did want it printed. More than I did, actually. There's a little bit of reversal. I don't care if it's printed because I can read it on my screen, but they want it printed because they want to highlight it.
So I have a question for both of you then. How do you deal, when you were writing the book, how do you deal with, did you run into the situation where you wanted to drop a Times magazine or a New York Times article in, but you can't, you don't own it, and how do you deal with what people use HydraText that upload non-free stuff?
Well, I actually have a pretty aggressive view of what fair use is. And on HydraText, I think anything is fair game to be on the HydraText site. Because the HydraText site consists of materials which professors use to evaluate to see whether they're going to use them in an educational context. And I think that, professors browsing to see if they want to use something in an educational context is even clearer fair use than simply using it in a classroom. What HydraText does is it prints out a little copyright report for you with each textbook. If you've entered the information as you've uploaded it, you'll get a little report showing you all the copyright you need to clear, or if it's fair use, you don't. Again, I take a pretty aggressive view of fair use. I think a Times article that is made available only to your students in order to convey information is just about as clear a case of fair use as I'm going to find. An entire chapter from a book is harder. An entire chapter from a book which someone else prepared for an educational context is off limits. I mean, that's clearly a copyright violation. But so, I don't try to answer all these questions with the software. When I'm making my own book, I have a pretty aggressive view of what is fair use.
We sought permissions for the things that were excerpts from other places. The permissions we sought from law professors when they owned the copyright in the law review article in question, right? A law professor's enemy is obscurity. So they loved saying yes. Our request for permission explained exactly what we would be paying them, which was nothing ever. Great, use it. A few websites, CNET, some other news websites that had some technology stories that we were interested in providing, asked for kind of crazy, whacked out payments. We didn't use the stuff.
So you just worked around it?
Yeah, we wrote our own narratives. We incorporated those facts, which aren't copyrightable, of course. We included a citation to that underlying article. We worked around it.
Did you link to the article then?
No, we don't link to anything because it's a PDF that doesn't have live links in it. So there's the URL for the story that if the student wants to go read it, they can.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, but there's not a hot link to it.
Right.
Any other questions in the audience before we have to wrap it up?
I'm just curious, Joe, is HydraText available for other people to use?
Oh, yeah. HydraText.org or HydraText.com, or in the CALI materials, I think there's a link to a site that I put up which has information, which then tells you how to. Now you have to get an account, and all you have to do is you click a little thing which says request an account, and up pops a little Gmail thing which will ask you to provide some information. Because the one thing for copyright purposes, I want to make sure that it's only basically props, right? That students can't get on there and Is that HydraText is Hydra HYDRA and then text.org or .com. It would work. And I have to do it manually, so it'll take me a little bit of time this afternoon to add you if you ask now, but I'll get you on there. I have a quick question. Who has my iPad? Okay.
Okay. That was a really good question.
What iPad?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. I think that's not the bane, but the requesting I think you can actually put more information on the website that explains this.
There's actually just quite a lot of narrative about that. Under the student tab, there's extensive narrative. Under the professor tab, there's the same narrative. So they understand why we're doing what we're doing, and they get to make notes.
I'm convinced you get a tsunami. Oh yeah, I'll be happy to give you money because you're going to produce more books than you're going to be $30 for me.
Oh, great. But when Guido says the lawsuit, it's the school. 2002, 2004, and then we're going to do that. Yeah, that was afterwards. My wife decided to retrain, and she went to the Yale School of Nursing. And so we had to stay around the Haven, and so I took the job, and then I ended up communicating with yeah. That's the way you do it these days. Yeah, it's been. I don't know that. Oh, you are okay. I'd love to get an account on you. Hide my just go. Yeah. It's one of the things I do with allergy. So much better. It was a great program. It's good. Yeah. Good to see all that. I enjoyed the percentage. Thank you.
It's a great range of approaches. What it's just lots of people doing different things, finding out what works, and then doing more of that and more of that. And it's a great faculty and insanity.
You just got it. It comes out of John's salary.
We pay people to write lessons. We're just not gonna do some lessons. Okay, great. Yeah, we spent between $50,000 and $100,000 a lesson offering a year to get an account. Now we're gonna spend on Facebook.
I think that we're chapter
on the website. It'll say what is this session account.
Yep.
And so there's roughly,
there's been a lot of
if you're at a
confusion.
14-week semester, you have a class that meets twice a week. That's 28 sessions, 3 times a week. It's whatever, 3 times 14 weeks. 42 sessions. So, somewhere in there, right, you're talking about an average of 35 sessions.
Yep.
But I think chapter to me was, I saw that and I was like, 500 a chapter. Chapter is like 8 or 9 classes.
Yeah.
So that it didn't quite click with me personally, just relating how.
No, I know. That's why I did it. Getting the vocabulary right is hard because we actually talked about that for a long time and ended up with chapter, and it was wrong. And you're right, session. I never even thought of that. We thought of class, but class is a terrible word for or course piece or section or chunk or unit. All those were the.
Session works for me, and it might not work for other people, right? I mean, it's hard.
And class is difficult too. The classes, I'll spend 3 days on 4 classes, and then some classes for some classes 25. Depends on the content. And also, the media gets pictured. You've got these exercises and things that have to maybe it's 2 pages and then 1 page interactive exercise.
And the one else plus is the pacing is much more idiosyncratic professor to professor than in the upper division classes. Well,
15.
We're a squirrely bunch. Well,
there's nothing wrong with that. My problem was people coming to me. I've had a lot of experience with this with lessons in the past. somebody will write a small lesson and someone will write a large lesson. We pay the same amount to each one, so that we can honestly say we pay the same amount to each one. You know, but if somebody writes a 10-question lesson, someone writes a 40-question lesson, and they talk to each other, they get mad.
Yeah, there's no good way to.
Pay me by the word.
That's right. That's right.
Pay me by the line.
So we're trying to avoid some of that by at least coming up with